Let's start on our backs today. So we'll just have a ball, have a couple blankets or towels handy, and find our way onto our spine. And we'll just settle right in there. Just allowing the mat to greet you here. Maybe building that little bubble of awareness around the mat. Feeling the length of the spine. Feeling the points of additional awareness along the spine's length. Maybe letting the eyes close. There's this group of people that live a very remote, very mountainous lifestyle. They have lived in this remote way, in this isolated way, for as long as anyone can remember. It's very rare that they interact with any type of outsiders, and so they end up being very self-sufficient. In human history, self-sufficient societies often have these rites of adulthood. And this community is no different. Give ourselves just about 30 more seconds here. Just feeling our way into this morning's practice. And when it feels appropriate for you, let's pull both thighs in towards the torso. So just inhaling and drawing the thighs in. We'll let the hands clasp on the shins or the hamstrings, giving ourselves just a nice little squeeze here. Little anterior hip compression, but also feel how this brings in the flexion energy into the spine. Sometimes it's isolated to the lumbar, but it doesn't have to be isolated to the lumbar. Even if your head stays engaged, you can feel the musculature pull and the posterior chain tighten into that desired flexion. And then we'll release both feet down to the mat. Extend our left leg and try to let that leg just deactivate so that the left leg is as relaxed as it can be. And then we'll pull the right thigh back in towards the torso and give ourselves a nice little squeeze here. Likely, we can get a little bit more anterior hip compression. We just take some of the slack from the left side and add it to this right capacity. Try to stay as relaxed as you can in the left leg. And then try to keep the right glute relaxed as well. Right glute sometimes can want to fight against this pull. If we can kind of concentrate the energy in the anterior hip compression on the right side. And then with our left hand majority wise, right hand might help as well, but let's pull the knee towards the middle of the sternum here. And I say sternum because we want to stay up as high as we can with that knee. Collapsing down towards the belly button kind of softens the pull. So if you can keep that knee high as is comfortable for you, while we're drawing in towards that medial line, start to feel a little bit different space in the hip crease. Give ourselves about 15 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, we're going to use the right hand to help guide that knee towards the right armpit. Left hand may assist as well, but really think about the right arm pulling us out and then keeping that energy like you're hiking the knee up towards the armpit. Relaxed left leg, trying to deactivate the left side of the body, at least the lower half of the left side of the body as much as possible. And we'll give ourselves about 15 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, let's slide our hands behind the right hamstring and interlace the fingers if that's accessible. And then we're going to extend the right leg towards the ceiling. It doesn't have to be at the ceiling, just towards the ceiling here. You can play with toe flexion. You can play with pulling and drawing the knee closer to the nose, sternum, or shoulder. That said, we want to stay comfortable and we want our head and shoulders to be relaxed and then at ease against the mat. That's our kind of indicator of how we're able to experience the shape. Head, shoulders relaxed, everything's good. The knee can bend as much as needs be to make that accessible for us. And we'll give ourselves roughly about 15 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate for you, let's guide this right leg across our body, rotating the hip here and just letting our body land in this rotation. The right arm here can anchor to the right side. It doesn't need to, though. You can stack this right arm if that feels better. Left arm can come to the left foot. Doesn't need to, though. Just finding some level of rotation here and trying to relax. We'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's bring the right leg back across the body and extend it down the mat. And then just be at ease. Give yourself the opportunity to just kind of experience any bilateral imbalances. But more than anything, think about deactivating. Think about just being relaxed here. And then we'll provide a little bit of a challenge with that relaxation, at least for some of us. Within the story, there's this, these rituals of adulthood vary around the world, but they all tend to be things that are very uncomfortable. They also tend to be things that are very painful, right? Sometimes in the Amazon rainforest, people have to put their hands in these big glove-like contraptions that are full of bullet ants, and this very painful sting, and this very painful toxin. Some places it's a scorpion sting. There are all of these like painful experiences that are used around the world to transition between and into adulthood from adolescence. Give yourself just 30 more seconds here just to feel fully and deeply at ease. And when it feels appropriate for you, let's bend both knees so the kneecaps point towards the ceiling if they're not already doing that. Settle here. And then re-extend your right leg. Right leg deactivates. We want that to be as relaxed as we can get it. And then we're going to pull the left thigh in towards the torso, hands clasped over the shin or hamstring. Whatever feels the most impactful for you. When we think about the way that we are compressing that anterior hip crease, where the sensation is coming from, how we can utilize our respiration to create more space. And then when it feels appropriate for you, we're going to use the right hand to guide the knee in towards the center of the sternum. Remember, we're trying to keep that up high so we get full activation of the hip crease. stays with our capacity to relax the right leg while expanding the anterior chain on the left side. We'll give ourselves about 10 more seconds here. And then when it feels appropriate, we use the left hand to pull the knee out towards the armpit. Want to keep that energy drawing the knee up. Right leg stays fully relaxed. We'll give ourselves about 15 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll relax back to neutral, swap the hand position behind the hamstring if it's not already, and extend that extend that left leg towards the ceiling. So this particular community had this rite of adulthood that required the adolescents to climb up to this very high peak. And in between this very high peak and this very other high peak, there was a bridge. Last 10 seconds here. And the thing about this bridge is that it was over when it feels appropriate for you. We're going to allow the left leg to rotate to the right side of our mat, and then we land here. Remember that the left arm can follow if that feels appropriate. Right hand can clasp onto the leg or the foot, whatever feels appropriate, or it can just be relaxed. This bridge was over this, between these two remarkably high peaks, and over this unfathomably deep valley. No one knew exactly how this bridge was created or when this bridge was created. And it was a true marvel. It was made out of the clearest quartz you could imagine. And it was completely invisible. Transparent. It wasn't mystical. It was just see-through. And so when you looked at this, it was like nothing was there. Last 15 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring our left leg back to neutral, extend it to meet the right, and once again, just experience the reality of your physical body right now. How does it feel in comparison to when we first met the mat? How does it feel now that we have some level of bilateral symmetry? Let's just give ourselves 30 more seconds here. It feels appropriate for you. We'll bend both of our knees and let the knees fall to one direction or the other, whatever side feels most appropriate. And then we're just going to press ourselves up into seat. Hopefully this will be the most challenging thing we have to do this morning. And let's just find a nice comfy seat and really feel the spinal column stack. Hopefully we have a little bit of additional hip space so our seat can be a little bit more grounded or more easily grounded. Maybe we let the eyes close here. I want to pay some particular attention to how the cervical spine is sitting and keep playing with head adjustments until you feel that the head just starts to rest weightlessly without effort on the spinal column stack. That's what we're looking for in our spinal column stack and head placement. So if you just keep making subtle little adjustments until you find that. And then just find a few rounds of respiration within that spinal column ease. Remember that the placement of the shoulders is going to be fairly impactful on how the spinal column stack is able to provide that support. So maybe you want to really pay attention to relaxing the shoulders down away from the ears. Palms can be up or down here, whatever is best for you. We'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here, just feeling into our seat. And then let's bring our leg, if your legs are not crossed here, let's bring them into a crossed position. And just note which leg is closer to your body and which leg is further away. And then let's take ourselves forward into a little seated forward fold. So we're back into some hip placement here. Fairly hip-centric start to practice. Ask yourself what you can do to relax. And as you come out here, remember, you can be arm kickstand, you could be forearm, you could be forehead to hands. or any shape in between. We just want to find our way into a shape where the hips feel like they are involved. So, just like in most of these rites of passage, previous experiencers play a role, and their role is not about soothing. The role oftentimes is about hyping the experience up, about making the experience psychologically challenging. And that's no different in this community. And when the participants are brought up to their bridge, they're brought up one by one. And those members of the community that have already gone through the rites of passage do things to make the experience more psychologically challenging. They let out screams as if there's someone falling off the bridge. They tell stories of past members of the community who've disappeared. And they do everything possible to make this terrifying experience feel even more terrifying. This idea of walking out onto an invisible platform where every step is uncertain. And the reason they do that is because this rite of passage is about demonstrating bravery. Last 45 seconds here. It feels appropriate for you. Let's press ourselves back up into seat. And we'll switch proximity of legs so that we can work on a little more space for the opposite hip. And then we're back into our seated forward fold. On the other side of the equation, there's the participants. And they're all huddled in this cave together and then brought out one by one. And they kind of take an opposite approach, right? They're trying to calm one another down. They're trying to talk about how this isn't that scary, how they don't have any concern. how they're very excited to go through this process. And yet, each one, as they're pulled out individually from the cave and led up to this point, are absolutely terrified. And it doesn't help that when one is pulled out, they hear these screams as if someone's falling off this bridge and plummeting into the valley below. So the experience becomes more and more terrifying the longer you're kept waiting in this cave. You can imagine there's also something psychological to being in this dark place and then being pulled out into this bright light. So your vision is all off, and then you're asked to walk out into nothingness. Asking yourself what you can do with your respiration to make this shape feel more at ease. We'll give ourselves just 60 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, let's press ourselves up into seat. From here, let's grab one of our blankets or towels and a ball. And from shelf fold, we'll just place that ball in the middle, fold that over like a taco so that we end up with a ball that we can use on our neck. Ideally, you have that ball kind of tucked into the fold crease so that we have a nice piece to work with. And then we're going to extend our legs out in front of us. As legs extend, let's just follow them forward into a forward fold. It's going to be the only forward fold to practice. So take a moment just to appreciate how the posterior chain is feeling this morning. Relax your way into the end of your exhale breath. Give ourselves just 60 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring our spine back to vertical. Then we're going to lower ourselves down so that our cervical spine meets this ball. And just let the ball do its work here. Ball can be in those three places: the middle of the architecture, at the base of the skull, or at the base of the cervical spine. I might have a suggestion today, which would be middle of the architecture. I just think that while you may have an area that may be better targeted, and if that's the case, totally understandable. But we've been working on some big joint openings, some big general tension holders in the hips and the entirety of the posterior chain. It might feel good just to have kind of a full release relaxation over the ball, but pick the spot that's most beneficial for you this morning. And then let's just be at ease. So it's also kind of the tradition in these rite of passages that the strongest, or the adolescent who's thought of as having the most potential, receives the most attention. Right? And in these rites of passage, attention generally means most challenge. And that's the case here. This young, kind of strong, brave adolescent who's kind of expected to grow into greatness. And he's kept in the cave the longest. He goes out last. He's heard all of these horrifying screams. His field of vision is the most impacted because he's been in this darkness the longest. And when he's finally led out, everything is just perfectly silent. No one talks. They walk him up to the point. He looks out and he sees nothing between him and this peak across the way. And he starts screaming to himself, trying to pump himself up. And then he tentatively puts a foot out. And there's this moment where the foot carries out. The bridge is just a little lower than you would expect it to be. And so you get this moment where for just a brief millisecond, it feels like there's nothing at all there. And he feels that and he freezes, and then his foot hits something, right? This invisible crystal bridge. And he takes his next step, and it's just as terrifying as the first. And he slowly and methodically plods his way across this invisible bridge to the other side. And when he gets to the other side, he lets out this triumphant roar. And he walks around kind of this edge of this peak, and he's reconvened with his peer group. And everyone is very hyped up, and they feel very brave, and they feel very accomplished. And they are. They've gone through this rite of passage, this terrifying experience. And they're brought back to the community, and there's a big celebration in honor of this peer group that's gone through this rite of passage. And on the other side of the rite of passage, there's responsibility. It's not the reason that they're put through these trials is because the community is testing their ability to hold responsibility. And so the very next morning, everybody kind of wakes up a little late. But this particular adolescent, the one who went last, he didn't sleep much. He's up early any day, every day. And he sees this old woman, and she's carrying this little tiny bag, and she can barely walk. And she's headed out of the village. This is a woman that he's never seen before. She's traveling through. They don't see many travelers here. She's heading out of the village, and he runs up and he kind of approaches her, and he's like, "Hey, do you need any guidance? There's nothing up there." And she's headed up towards that invisible bridge. And she just kind of waves him off, like, "No, no, no. I've made this walk many times. I know exactly where I'm going and what I'm doing." And he sees that, and he turns around and watches her kind of walk up this path. And then it kind of clicks within him. He now has this responsibility. He's not this carefree adolescent anymore. He needs to be looking after this person. It doesn't matter that she's not in his community. She has come here, and he knows what's in front of her, and she doesn't. And he thinks, she must be confused. But he also wants to respect that she's already told him she doesn't want his help and waved him off. So he kind of follows behind her at a distance that doesn't interfere. And he figures once she gets to the peak where this invisible bridge is, he'll be able to approach and guide her back down and help her to wherever she's trying to go. We'll give ourselves about 60 more seconds here. Just finding as much ease as is possible. Feeling the cervical spine relax over this prop. When it feels appropriate for you, let's bring our knees into a bent position if they're not already. And we're going to do one last thing for the hips, a little external rotation. Bottoms of the feet come together, feet ball out wide. You can keep the ball where it is in the neck if that feels good for you. If you feel like you're done with that, you can also remove that and just settle into this little supine butterfly. Last little adjustment for the hips. Last little shape to settle into. When it feels appropriate for you, we'll bring our knees together. And then just ask yourself if you want anything, if you could use anything, if you could benefit from anything prior to Shavasana. If there's anything that would be advantageous, let's offer that to ourselves now. If you have everything you want, if you have everything you need, and let's drift into a shape where we can appreciate some stillness. And so this young man watches as this woman walks straight up to this bridge. And she pauses for just a moment, one step before she goes out, and she reaches into her bag. Just fully, deeply, and completely settling in here. And so in a split second, this old woman reaches into her bag, pulls out a handful of powder, throws it down, and then just carelessly steps onto the bridge. Every few steps or so, she reaches into her bag, throws down a handful of flour, and continues. And this young man follows her across. She gets to the other side. She never stopped. She never thought. She never looked around. And he runs up to her and he says, his jaw drops open. And he says, I cannot believe how brave you are. I can't imagine going across that bridge so carelessly. And she turns around and she sees this man that she'd waved off before. And she says, "You're a fool. Nothing about bravery. All I had to do was see." We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes, into our wrists and our ankles, to our elbows, knees, up into our shoulders, up into our hips. All of that movement we put in the hips today. Eventually, we'll let the whole body move and we'll utilize that movement to transition our way up into a seat. In the seated space, spine gets tall once again. Breath gets fluid, eyes close. And we'll inhale our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that when you have clarity, there's no need for bravery, and see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. Thanks for being here, taking care of yourself. I'll be back tomorrow night if you want to move. If I see you then, have a beautiful day. If I see you next week, have a beautiful week. Mwah.